All right, today we are jumping into one of the biggest frustrations when you're teaching a kid to read. And trust me, we're going to bust a huge myth while we're at it.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever seen it happen? A kid writes a word, maybe said or was, I don't know, 20 times in a row, but then the very next day, they get it wrong again? It's this universal problem that makes parents and teachers feel kind of helpless, and honestly, just makes kids feel defeated. So what is really going on here?
Well, the answer might go against everything you've ever been told about reading. You know that traditional method, forcing kids to memorize a whole word like it's a picture? It's fundamentally flawed. Seriously, it has never worked, and it never will. Let's break down exactly why.
Okay, let's dive right into this myth of memorization. To really get why this old method is such a spectacular failure, we gotta look at the words themselves first.
We call these high-frequency words. They're basically the glue that holds sentences together. You know them, the, of, and, was. They are, simply put, the words kids are going to see over and over and over again when they're just starting to read.
And get this, these words make up a staggering 60 to 75% of the text in those early reading books. That's huge. Mastering them is absolutely the key to reading fluently. If a kid stumbles over these words every time, reading just stops. It grinds to a halt and turns into a really painful chore. The stakes couldn't be higher.
But here's the kicker. Not all of these super common words are created equal. A lot of them don't play by the rules we teach. And that right there is where all the trouble starts.
This is the crucial distinction you have to make. We've got two types of these words. On one side, you have regular words, things like in, on, and can. Kids can totally sound these out using their phonics skills. But then you have the irregular ones, words like said, was, they. These guys are the real culprits, the ones that just break all the rules. Which, brings us right back to our main question. If these words are so irregular, doesn't it make sense to just memorize them? Isn't that the only option? Well, according to the actual science of reading, nope. That's exactly the wrong way to go about it.
And this gets to the real science of it. Our brains aren't cameras, We don't just take a mental snapshot of a word's shape and file it away. Reading happens through a process called orthographic mapping. It's all about connecting the individual sounds in a word to the letters that are supposed to make those sounds. When you try to memorize the whole word, you're skipping that critical step. You're actually encouraging kids to just guess.
So when we tell a child to just memorize it, we're literally asking their brain to do something it wasn't built for. We're setting them up to fail, even with the best intentions. The system itself is broken. But the good news is there's a much, much better way. So let's talk about the solution. It's time to introduce the hero of our story, a scientifically backed approach called the heart-word method.
The logic behind this is it's brilliant. Instead of treating the whole word like some big, unsolvable mystery, we show kids that, hey, most of this irregular word is actually totally regular. We help them decode the parts that make sense, and we isolate only the tricky part, the one part they actually need to learn by heart.
Okay, check this out. Let's take a classically tricky word like said and see how it works. Step 1, you just say the word. Said. Easy. Step 2, you find the parts that do follow the rules. The said at the beginning makes the S sound. Yep. The D at the end makes the D sound. Perfect. So what's the tricky part? It's that AI in the middle making a weird E sound. That is the heart part. We literally draw a little heart over it because it's the only piece the child has to learn by heart.
And when we start teaching this way, something really amazing starts to happen. The entire experience of what it means to read just begins to change for a child.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. It's super practical. You can do things like make a heart-word chart where the tricky part of each new word is highlighted, or you can play a game, something like Fix the Spelling, where students have to find and correct the irregular part of a word. See? These activities turn learning from a boring, frustrating chore into an active puzzle-solving game.
So here's the most important takeaway. This approach totally transforms reading. Words that once seemed random and impossible, now they have a logic to them. They become predictable. The child isn't a guesser anymore. They're a code breaker. And that leads to a really powerful conclusion, doesn't it? When a child struggles with these words, it's not their fault. It's the system that's failing them. By giving them the right tools, we're actually giving them the power to succeed. So we'll just leave you with this question to chew on.
What if we stopped asking children to do the impossible, to memorize thousands of visual shapes, and instead we taught every single one of them the real logic behind our language? Just imagine, what could that change?